Though we can reach the surface, it offers us no solace. Temperatures have dropped to an eye-freezing sub 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Hostiles continue to pile up on the surface. And, worst of all, a horde of necronoids, separated only by a fragile wall of flesh, is about to be unleashed onto our territory. Despite fires cutting down a majority of the horde, the necronoids can and will hunt down anything that belongs to us. The undead giant and dragon, as well as our mechanoids, will have to remain under the bunker until this threat is dealt with. And things are only made more interesting as now that the necronoids have collapsed the flesh, isolating us from the rest of the RimWorld, all sorts of strange creatures have begun entering the territory to see what they've been missing out on. Some of these strange creatures, of course, being more necronoids. No matter who or what tries to enter the territory, the necronoids annihilate in under a minute. Even the anomaly itself can't withstand the threat of the necronoid. Thankfully, after enough time and shamblers, these necronoids are temporarily cut down, giving Scorpion and his mechanoids time to establish a sort of escape tunnel that leads us straight out of here from the opposite side of whatever horror is going on. We also kidnapped ourselves an entity from the surface, properly this time, no need for dev mode. Though, we probably won't have anything to study as far as the anomaly goes for the time being. The big thing we need is a way out of here. If you find yourself in a similar scenario like this, I would not recommend using steel walls like this, as the flesh easily collapses it, I guess you could say, by overgrowing. But remember that given the absolutely freezing temperatures of the planet at the moment... Oh great, the necronoids are back. A necrosion generator, a sort of necronoid terramorpher device, slams onto the surface. Its sole purpose is to corrupt, then mutate all material into necronoid forces. All while our undead giant, tasked with strip mining away to the fleshmass heart and void monolith themselves, is overran by flesh beasts. Meanwhile, our undead dragon attempts to cut down the necrosion generator itself using toxic fire breath, which reveals an absolute... Holy shit, watch this, dude, just watch this. The dragon is able to fall back in time, though the same cannot be said for the giant, who was unfortunately stun-locked into a permanent dying state. The undead can't bleed out nor starve, so the only thing the giant has to do, or, well, has to worry about, is a stray necronoid ripping him apart, otherwise he should be fine. Despite these setbacks, the fire is completely decimating the necrosion generator in its presence. Now we just have the horde itself to worry about, which, as you'll notice, has the means of increasing its ranks. After 2 long weeks of watching the horde dominate the surface, our salvation arrives on the final day of the year 5506, 1 day short of 7 RimWorld years since Scorpion crashed here. This salvation takes the form of a blizzard. The blizzard drops the already freezing planet to nearly negative 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperatures so cold that the necronoids themselves suffer from hypothermia and begin to split and collapse and die of the cold. By the end of day 1, year 7, the necronoids are a husk of what they used to be. While waiting and watching the necronoids fall, one of the few remaining civilizations on the planet contacts our bunker in hopes of using it as a dumping ground for the toxic waste packs. In exchange, they offer us, among other things, a vanometric power cell, which is essentially a highly fragile device that produces a free 1000 watts of power. The power cell being offered to us is on the smaller end. It only produces about 500 free watts, which is still worth plenty to us. We could easily contain and then freeze the toxic waste packs themselves, but I have a different idea. I'm actually going to let the waste packs dissolve and then pollute the surface, if only to render it an even more inhospitable ground to anybody who isn't already in our bunker. It isn't until the 3rd day of the new year that the freeze kills off the rest of the necronoids, and temperatures return to an average of negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperatures relatively survivable enough for Scorpion, so long as he keeps his thermal gear on. Our first and most immediate steps to reclaiming the surface involves repairing any destroyed doors and patching any holes in the roof. Our mechanoids, Printer and Hallbot, will handle the construction work. As for Scorpion himself, we're going to use this chance to address some long unfinished business he has between himself and the flesh mass heart, the very thing that drowned this land in flesh and ruin so long ago. Our undead giant reached a final death trying to reach the flesh mass heart, though his sacrifice paved the way for Scorpion to reach it himself. It isn't until now, roughly 250 days since the flesh emerged from below, that Scorpion can retrieve one of the 3 samples necessary to unlock the secret to the flesh mass heart's destruction. After tending to a mild burn that Scorpion received while grabbing the sample, we analyze the sample itself. It's then that I realize there's only one other nerve bundle on the entire map that contains another sample. We only have access to 2 of the 3 samples required to destroy the flesh mass heart. The only way for more nerve bundles to grow is if temperatures are warm enough for the flesh mass heart itself to beat again, which would cause the entire map to become swarmed with flesh and start this entire horrible cycle all over again. So, I suppose the best choice, and the only choice, is to simply accept the flesh mass heart's presence and use it to our advantage. We were never going to stop this. Also, my game crashed shortly after this, so I decided to tunnel directly back to the monolith itself after loading back in. I didn't bother gathering the sample from the nerve bundle at all. But yeah, I guess don't stare at eldritch anomalies for too long lest they crash your game. Anyway, not so long after that, Scorpion's increasing exposure to the cold hell surface world drives him into a fit of insane ramblings. So, as Scorpion loses himself to his newfound episodes of madness and mania, Hallbot will begin gathering as much salvage and necronoid material as possible. It's relatively safe for the time being. The only concerns we can immediately spot are the 2 wild undead dragons that have wandered into our territory. One of them was once a pack animal, but we're just gonna leave both of them alone. The morning of day 4, year 7, a small group of flesh hulks charged the bunker, thus giving Printer and Hallbot a chance to recharge some of their batteries, and a chance for Scorpion to reclaim some of his lost sanity, one bullet at a time, I suppose. While this engagement happens, the first trade caravan in like 3 RimWorld years decides to show up. And I mean, I of course said, yeah, welcome in, but I didn't realize that a bunch of shamblers also wandered in ahead of time. Unfortunately, thanks to these shamblers alone, pretty much every single member of this one trade caravan is now infected with the Necroa virus. If you don't know how bad that is, because you don't know how I modded my shamblers or haven't watched the series up to this point, I don't know, start at the bunker episode. I mean, just watch every video in order and you'll know how bad shamblers are. But to put it simply, no one here is worth saving. In the early morning hours of Day 5, Year 7, Scorpion, after clearing out the remaining shamblers, can finally get some rest, while Hallbot or Holler and our construction bot can once again get back to work doing what they can to secure the surface. In the meantime, we've been researching things like xenogenetics and gun turrets. Xenogenetics I intend on using on the vampire that we have locked away in our prison cell. More on that to come. But the gun turrets, well, I'm sure you can imagine what those will be good for. Hallbot will then focus on securing corpses, scavenging for perishables, and especially hauling back anything worthy of value. The rest of the non-perishable material and items will come last in our list of priorities. Meanwhile, Scorpion will continue attempting to recruit the vampire's thrall that we captured, the 70-plus-year-old man-hating ghoul named Hitomi. Don't let the ghoul's elderly age fool you, though. Her time spent as a thrall left her with the mental and physical prowess of a 30-year-old scorpion. I guess 38-year-old scorpion if you want to be specific. Hitomi's stats are solid, and even more surprisingly, despite her being a misandrist, kidnapped and imprisoned by a man who's harvested nearly 20 bags of her blood, Hitomi has begun to see Scorpion as more of a friend than a captor. She actually kind of respects him. Perhaps during their conversations, Scorpion told his tale to her, of Lake Mountain and of Maria. Or at least, that's the lie Scorpion and I tell ourselves. Perhaps Stockholm Syndrome is simply to blame. Regardless, it's been well over 200 days since Scorpion had someone to call a friend and an ally, but now that we're able to escape to the surface, a helping hand is what we need. Grandma Thrall over here could easily maintain the bunker, while Scorpion can put his shooting stats to use by exploring the world itself and hopefully finding a new place to call home. One closer towards the equator, the green belt. The only place capable of sustaining life on an otherwise frozen RimWorld. As for the vampire itself, you'll see in time what I plan on doing with her, the crime boss Teresa Matthews. In the meantime, though, a survivor has crash-landed onto the surface with what are pretty terrible stats, and she crash-landed right in the middle of our toxic waste pack pile, which has begun to just decimate the surface with pollution. Rather than saving her, though, I decided to use her a bit as an experiment, a sort of way to see how effective the toxicity buildup is from all the damn toxic waste packs. Don't question the morality of that too much. Scorpion is already making a gas mask for himself. Sometime later, Printer finishes construction on our latest prototype, a gene extractor. Next in the assembly is a prototype gene assembler and some prototype gene banks to go along with it. Holler will be tasked with fetching the necessary steel and components to continue construction of our gene lab, which will, soon enough, be the home of one vampire named Teresa Matthews. The gene extractor does as the name implies, extracts random genes from humans and xenohumans. These extracted gene frames are stored in our gene banks. Once we've extracted all the genes we want for ourselves, we could theoretically mix them all up in our gene assembler and create a new type of xenohuman for ourselves. I guess I should also mention our undead dragon, shortly after I nicknamed it to Commander, untamed itself, and yeah, it doesn't belong to anyone, it just lives in our basement, but thankfully it doesn't need to drink or eat anything, we just need to not piss it off. Right, so the reason we're making all of these major steps towards gene stealing is simply because, I don't know, being a vampire or some other xenohuman sounds badass. And I'll be real, Scorpion can steal the embrace from our sanguiphage right now if he wanted. But here's the catch with that. Teresa Matthews belongs to a specific bloodline or variant of the sanguiphage xenohuman class known as a Bruxa. Bruxas specifically only exist for the carnal pleasure of whoever or whatever, I don't even know. But as a result, it makes them almost entirely helpless in terms of combat and violence. Scorpion, should he become a Bruxa right now, would essentially turn into a Giga Chad housewife, which, in a playthrough like this, does nobody any favors at all. Anyway, With all that in mind, then, a scorpion, as you can see, has just taken Teresa and placed her into our gene extractor. Once enough time passes and the process is complete, one of her many genes will be extracted, put into a gene frame, and then placed into our gene bank. The gene that we retrieve from the gene extraction process is completely random, meaning we'll have to deal with extracting both the good and the bad genes of Teresa. Once Teresa's genes are extracted, we won't be able to extract from her again for a little over 20 days or so, lest she meet a final death should we choose to speed up the process and extract more than her body's capable of giving. 12 hours later, and Teresa's first wave of gene extraction therapy concludes. And now Scorpion is the proud owner of a gene frame containing the genetic code for Tinder skin, which essentially gives anyone possessing the gene, like most sanguiphages, dry and highly flammable skin. Teresa's next therapy session will be in about 18 and a half days. On the evening of day 10, after she gets her blood harvested for like the 24th time, Scorpion successfully recruits Hitomi to the cause, and she joins our colony. Now that she's been recruited, I could grant her a nickname of her own. But, well, I'm not sure what to call her, so I'll ask you. What do you think I should call our vampire's thrall, who's, I think, Japanese, but her last name is Galvin? Hitomi Galvin, huh? Okay, anyway. Scorpion also, somehow, reached maximum social standing with Hitomi. She actually considers him an ally, while Scorpion sees her still as just another stranger. With this in mind, I decided to trust our elderly caretaker turned ghoul slaughterer with some firepower, including a certain Scar battle rifle that's been with us since like day 7 or something. A long time. Unlike Scorpion, Hitomi still demands a bit of luxury in her living quarters. So, as a gesture of good faith, she will also be given the only nice room within a couple 100 miles. Scorpion's room, I mean. This works for Scorpion anyways, whose inherent asceticism means he would much rather sleep with the bare necessities. The following day, Hitomi's increased social and intellectual stats are used to trade for as much cloth as necessary to build, you guessed it, another friggin' air balloon. The blizzard that rolled in about a week ago and annihilated all the necronoids also shredded our last air balloon to pieces. This new air balloon will be used to scout the green belt, the equator, a place with temperatures that can reach up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a warmth Scorpion and I could only dream of. A tundric oasis where the few remaining civilizations on the entire planet have drifted off to. A place Scorpion would very much like to see for himself. I can't even imagine what it's like to return to nature like this, to see a land untouched by anomalous flesh, or the frozen ravages of a dying sun, a place where temperatures are naturally, not artificially, within a cool 50 degrees Fahrenheit range. What it must be like for Scorpion to see wild flora and fauna once again, and to sit upon frozen, untamed grass. If only Maria could see this. This is only a brief stop, though. Once Scorpion gathers enough wood to keep the air balloon afloat, he takes to the sky and pushes further into the green belt. Meanwhile, Hitomi livens up the bunker by having some nice wooden floors installed into her bedroom. Technically, Scorpion is still the one controlling his mechanoids, even if from afar, which I find pretty interesting. It's like a sort of indirect one-way communication between Scorpion and Hitomi. She complains that her room is too ugly, and suddenly Printer comes to life fixing it up and making it look nice. Despite our best efforts in helping her, however, Hitomi still inevitably falls to the mental break that's just kind of customary to anyone who remains in the bunker. So while she's busy recovering from her food binge, Scorpion lands to his next site, which is some sort of tundric swamp, covered, unfortunately, in various raiders and scavengers. Nothing Scorpion shouldn't be able to handle, though. As Scorpion lands, the bunker itself is suddenly raided.